Okay, good morning. Good morning. I'm going to be talking to you today about yoga, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of a spin on yoga. We're going to talk about yoga for your body type, and I'm going to pretend that I'm talking to the people right in front of me, so I feel like I've got someone to talk to. Thank you so much for being part of today. Thank you. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. I practice Ayurveda. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. I'm also a yoga teacher. I can hear a little bit of echo on this. Is this okay? Yeah. I'm also an Ayurvedic practitioner. So what is Ayurveda? Ayurveda is Indian medicine. It looks at keeping balance in your body. And one of the reasons that we're talking about yoga for your body type today is to bring in the philosophies of Ayurveda. Pardon me, I'm just struggling with this microphone a little bit. Is that better? Oh, that feels so much better. Okay. So at the end of today's session, what I want you to walk away with is an understanding of different body types. So when we practice yoga, thank you so much for joining us. When we practice yoga, generally we practice a specific type of yoga. We might be drawn to a specific type of yoga, but it might not necessarily be the type of yoga that's suitable for us. We're going to understand about our certain body types and how we can start to understand how these different types of yoga will suit our certain body types. And then we're going to have a bit of a practice of some yoga. So it's all about intention. So what is Ayurveda? Ayurveda, the word breaks down to science of life knowledge. So within us, we have everything that we need to be healthy. We have that internal intelligence. But our current lifestyle, our daily practices, maybe even our practice of yoga can start to change some of this balance. And so if it changes over a long period of time, we can start to become sick and we can start to become diseased. So the idea of Ayurveda is to understand the particular energies within us and to be able to have a healthy life practice. So Ayurveda, some of the components of Ayurveda. So when I work from my Ayurvedic practice, I would look at your current lifestyle, I would look at your history, I would look at your parents' history, I would look at your daily practice, I would definitely look at your diet. We have the understanding that everything we put in our body becomes us. And we might eat really healthily, we might think that we eat really healthily, but we want to understand, are we digesting our food properly? When we're not digesting our food properly, then it's not going to be subjective to be able to have that lifelong practice. I would look at herbs designed to start to bring that routine back into balance that little bit more. I would look at seasonal routine. So what we eat in winter, we don't want to necessarily be eating in summer. I would look at body therapies. So over at our stall, we're doing massage today. When I'm working with body therapies, massage might be one type. I might do an oil massage. Or if there's already lots of moisture in the body and there's lots of toxin that's accumulated in the body, I might be better off prescribing a kind of dry powder massage. So we're starting to loosen some of that toxin in the body and taking it out of the body. Definitely we look at yoga. Yoga is a therapy within Ayurveda. The two go together. Within Australia, we don't often hear about the word Ayurveda, but it needs to go together, and today I'm going to tell you why. We also look at psychology within the Ayurvedic practice because we understand that the body and the mind and the spirit are all affected and all entwined. So what is yoga? So many definitions, but we could say for today that yoga is a spiritual practice. Yoga works with the breath. We might work with the asana. In the West, we're very familiar with some of the practices of asana, of posture. Meditation, we might work with some hand gestures known as mudras. We might work with some of the cleansing practices. The idea of yoga, the objective of yoga is stopping the thoughts that roll in the mind. So when people tell me, I can't really do yoga because I'm not flexible, I say, but that's not the whole point. You've missed some of the point of yoga. Yoga is more than just the asana. Yoga is that holistic practice. I really find this definition quite interesting. This is a definition of health that's been adopted by the World Health Organization. We look at health being a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being. And it's not only the absence of disease. So we're starting to work before the absence of disease. We're looking at sustaining and we're looking at maintaining a current state of health and wellness. Yoga and Ayurveda, when you work with it together, it becomes a preventative approach to healthcare. It can also become a responsive approach. So if someone comes to me in my practice and they have something that's going on in their body, I'm going to work on that preventative approach. When I teach yoga, we've got a health and wellness retreat up in Bendigo. When I teach yoga up in Bendigo, I'm looking at a seasonal practice. I'm looking at the individuals within my group context. I'm looking at their time of life. I'm listening when they walk through the door. I'm listening to what's going on. So that's becoming a responsive approach to healthcare. And I'm not only looking at the body, I'm not only looking, can they touch their toes? Can they do a practice of Trikonasana effectively? I'm looking at the whole of the person, what's going on, or tree pose if you want to do a tree pose, what's going on with that whole person, with the body, with the mind and the spirit. So let's have a little bit of a look about what Ayurveda is. Do you understand about what Ayurveda is? Have you heard of Ayurveda before? Yep, okay, good. Okay, so we understand that within Ayurveda we have 5 different elements, and those are air, space, fire, water and earth. And then those elements work together to form particular doshas, or in Australia we often know this as body type. So if you Google Ayurveda, you often read the word body type, find your body type. That's kind of what we're talking about today. So the body types are 3. We talk about Vata, Pitta and Kapha. Within Vata, it's predominantly air and space. Within Pitta, it's predominantly fire and water. And within Kapha, it's predominantly earth and water. And we could say that Ayurveda is a type of characteristic science. So within those 3 doshas, within Vata, there's certain characteristics that are common. Within Pitta, there are characteristics that are common. And within Kapha, there are certain characteristics that are common. We could also say that it's a like increases like kind of system. So if you look up here, we can say within Vata, there's lightness, there's dryness. So if you look at a season of autumn, for example, autumn can be characterised by lots of dryness. It can be quite windy. It can be quite light. So within the season of autumn, we might be prone to more dryness of skin. We might be prone to more dryness in our bones. You might start to feel a little bit more creaking when you're doing joint rotations, for example, in yoga practice. We might find that therapeutically, people might be prone to a little bit more anxiety or insomnia or constipation. So we're going to change that. Our practice of yoga in autumn, which is a Vata type season, might be using more joint rotations, might be using an oilier type of diet, might be using things that are going to ground us instead of having us up here, which is where insomnia might be, which is where anxiety might be. We want to bring the intention. We're changing the intention of our practice to bring it more downward, to bring in some of those earthy, heavy type qualities that would exist in Kapha. The next one, we look at Pitta. A Pitta type person predominantly might be very transformative, very opinionated, very direct, very organised, very structured. They might have lots of burning passion. You might hear it in me. I have lots of burning passion about Ayurveda. I like lots of structure. I'm very organised. There's that transformation. And around here, we're also focusing on digestion. So a type of yoga within our Pitta type practice might need to be a little bit more cooler. So we're looking at that like increases like. So we know that Pitta, a person with Pitta naturally has lots of heat. We want to cool that down. Alternatively, looking at a Kapha type person, they already have lots of heaviness and moistness. They're in that they might be in that child's type frame of life. It's winter now. My toes are absolutely solid frozen. I can feel that coldness that goes all throughout my body. A particular person that already has these type of qualities might be drawn towards a quieter type practice, but they would need to kick it up a little bit. They would need to bring in some of these fiery, sharp, dominant qualities. So we're looking at balancing, looking at the idea of like increases like. So you might start to identify. You can start to analyse yourself a little bit. So you might look at the Pitta column and go, yes, I've got really cold hands and feet right now. I told you that my toes are frozen solid. You might be prone to some digestive issues. You might be prone to a bit of gas and a bit of bloating. So you can start to diagnose yourself. Or on the other hand, you might be down here. You might have that naturally cool, clammy skin. You might be really solid in structure as a friend. You might have a really gorgeous laugh, beautiful eyes that kind of draw me in, a melodic singing voice. Or on this one, Pitta, you might be prone to indigestion. You might suffer from skin rashes because this is predominantly in Pitta. You might have indigestion. You might really hate the heat. You might be that type of person that's loving the weather right now. The idea within Ayurveda is to work out, is this you in balance or is this you out of balance? So what came first? Which is why it's a little bit, it's more recommended to go to do a diagnostic than looking at this yourself. So you have a direct path on what's going on with your body, what's going on with your mind, where your natural constitution is. And then when you start to understand that, turmeric might be more beneficial for someone with a Vata type constitution. Someone that has a Pitta type constitution, if they have black pepper in their diet, if they have things like chili in their diet, all they're doing is increasing heat in their body, so it's not going to work. On the other hand, this Kapha type person that has that solid, heavy structure, they would really benefit from the pepper and the cayenne pepper and the chili, because we're balancing what's going on within the body. Okay, I'm going to give you a case study. So how I got into this, I really enjoyed the practice of yoga. I had some issues going on with me physically and mentally, and I found yoga really good as a spiritual practice to start to get over that. But my diet was out of kilter. My knowledge was out of kilter. And so because I'm a Pitta type person, I like things that were fast paced and heating. And I would always go for the power yoga. I would always go for things that make me feel like I'm competitive, that I'm striving towards something. And I have 3 darling little angels. And before I understood this, I would go and I would do my mummy practice. I'd always set aside my time every morning, and I've got a wonderful husband that would look after the kids while I do yoga. And I would feel so good doing my fast, hot, strenuous pace of yoga. So good. And then I would walk inside and I would feel stimulated, and I would almost want to tear shreds off my children. While I was doing my practice, I felt really, really good, but when I'm coming inside, I'm way too stimulated. So it's out of balance. What I was eating was way too stimulating. And so when we're talking about balancing, like increases like, that flies out the window. So when you start to investigate using Ayurveda, when you start to apply the Ayurvedic practices and philosophies with yoga, it completely changes and it become more therapeutic. So there's different styles of yoga. We all have the one direction. We all want to get to that Chitta Vritti Nirodha. When we're looking at Patanjali, the idea is to stop the thoughts that roll in the mind, okay? But there's different styles and there's different methods to get there. We understand that, yep. What we don't necessarily see in the West is the idea of the application of Ayurveda. We don't necessarily see that there's Vata, Pitta and Kapha, and some of these doshas are more suitable to other styles of yoga than others. So if you take that case study, good catch, if you take that case study that I told you before, say me, being a Pitta type person that does a practice of power yoga or Bikram type yoga in the middle of the day, in the middle of summer, all I'm doing is increasing those qualities that are there. I might be better off as that Pitta type person changing my practice and making it a little bit more cooler and grounded and steady. So I'm starting to eradicate some of that need for competition and some of that need for fire. Show you what I mean a little bit more. We can start to match some of those styles of yoga according to the doshas. So that Kapha type person, they may be naturally drawn. They've already got earth and water in them. They may be naturally drawn to the style of yoga that is earthy and grounded. And in a yoga type practice, they may really just want to get to the end of Shavasana and be in that relaxation pose. And their mind might be ready for it because they've already got that grounded feeling. A Vata type person, on the other hand, that has lots of air and space might find that cooler practice very hard, or they might find that Shavasana, that finer relaxation, very hard because there isn't a lot of grounding there. So their mind, when they're in Shavasana, might be out the window. They might be planning what they're going to have for dinner when they leave the class. They might be planning what they're going, a Vata type person might not even plan. They might just be thinking, what am I going to do in 3 weeks from now? And then it might change because there's no groundedness and there's no solidness. So a Vata type person doing an Vinyasa type practice is just going to increase that air and that space and that erratic flow, that kind of quality. So that Vata type person might be better off to something that's a little bit slower and a little bit more mindful. And so you start to analyse what's going on. We're all doing yoga. We've still got yoga, but it's that particular style, that particular intention of how we're practicing that yoga that's going to help to get us to get to that balance, and it's going to help to get us to the stopping the thoughts that roll in the mind. This is our intention. So we understand yoga has postures, asana. We're very familiar with that in the West. We understand that yoga has meditation, and we might use the posture and the breathing to be able to allow ourselves to prepare for meditation. But all of these performed with a different intention can make our yoga style more therapeutic, can completely change our practice of yoga. And when you start to understand your body type, when you start to analyse it, then you can start to do yoga for your body type. All right, so let's practice. We're going to do a little bit of yoga. I'm not going to ask you to stand. I'm not going to ask you to do anything that you're not comfortable with, but I am going to ask you just for a minute to go back. And just for the sake of today, I'm going to ask you to put yourself into one of 3 categories. I'm going to ask you today to choose. Are you feeling a little bit airy, spacey? Would you identify today with this? Are you feeling a little bit stimulated? Are you feeling nice and warm inside? Probably not. Feeling a little bit grounded, heavy, maybe even working towards some digestion, some mucus, some inflammation, some congestion. Maybe this is where you are today. Or if you want to look at it a little bit further, what type of qualities are speaking to you right now? So choose one, either Vata, Pitta or Kapha, and this is going to be the intention that we're working from today. And I ask you, either standing or sitting. If you're feeling that you're here, I'm going to ask you to concentrate on your seat bones, on your feet, and to take your breath down, to feel the energy at your feet. So if you're sitting, maybe your spine is long, and maybe you can feel heaviness on your seat bones touching the ground. Maybe you can feel that connection with your feet. So even by here, your intention starts to change. If you're up here, if you're already feeling heavy and grounded, maybe you need a little bit more stimulation. So if there's a little bit of obesity, if there's a little bit of congestion, when we're down, we're often like this. I drove today from Bendigo. We left this morning. When you're driving, you're kind of like this naturally, yeah? So we want to open up. This is the seat of Kapha in here. Kapha is protecting. Kapha is nurturing. So we want to open this space. In winter is the season for Kapha. We might associate winter with Kapha. Often you see kids with runny noses, those kaphagenic type qualities. So we want to open it up. So your intention then, all we're doing is changing our intention. Our intention for a Kapha type person is going to be to lift up and out. So often when I'm teaching yoga for a Vata type person or a Vata type class, I might say, concentrate on your feet. Feel that heavy grounded cord going all the way down to the earth, wrapping down, and the breath. Move the breath down. For a Kapha type class, I might say, feel that thread lifting up towards the sky. Lift up, and then the spine starts to lengthen and the shoulders start to move back, and this space here starts to open up. And so we're starting to be lighter and working towards some of that lifting up and moving away. So if we're going to do a type of practice that focuses on tree pose, for example, you can start to change. So your intention might be downward, groundedness in your tree pose, particularly if you're moving everywhere. A balance can be quite hard. A balance, we're asking one side of our body to take the weight, and you might notice that you're really steady one day and not so steady the next. So you might need to take it down. Or if you really rather be in Shavasana, you might need that lift up. And even when you're in tree pose, I'll see if I can do it with my hands. Even when you're in tree pose and you press your hands together, pressing your hands starts to lift up. And then we're lifting that whole place. So we're still doing that one pose. Within that class, we're still doing that one pose, but our intention of the execution of that pose starts to change. And so we might do any particular style of yoga, but our intention, with knowledge of our body type, with intention, it starts to change. And this starts to become a therapeutic approach to yoga. If you're a yoga student, your teacher doesn't need to know this. But once you start to understand this, and once you start to apply this, your whole practice can change. So if you're doing a vinyasa type practice, it might be as much as a short pause between the next flow. So you're not increasing that air in the space. Thank you. Or if you're doing a vinyasa type practice and you are a kapha type person with lots of earth and water, you might speed it up a little bit. So instead of that short pause, you might be flowing a little bit more. If you're a pitta type person, instead of heating the body, it might just be just a second between each one. So again, your practice isn't changing, but your intention of your practice is changing. Everything is about what you eat. I run a Diploma of Ayurveda Yoga Teaching. We have Australia's first accredited course, Diploma of Ayurveda Yoga Teaching. It is a 2-year course, nationally accredited. We have people that are trained in both yoga and Ayurveda as teachers. The first thing that we do, the first 6 months in our course, is looking solely at nutrition, solely at digestion. We look at what you put in your body. We look at how that influences the practice of your yoga. If you put something in your body that is raw and you're Vata type person, we look at the qualities of Vata being rough, dry, cold. We look at the qualities of raw food being rough, dry, cold. If you're doing a vinyasa type practice that is very movement orientated, has lots of stimulation of air, all you're doing is increasing. So potentially you might end up, depending on where you are, you might end up with a little bit more digestive issues, bloating, constipation, irritable bowel syndrome. You might look at a little bit of an increase of anxiety, insomnia. Later on it might lead to arthritis. So you're starting to look at the whole approach. If you're a kapha type person and you put lots of white foods into your body, if you've got a diet that's very high in fried foods, in yogurt, for example, in milk, things that are very cold, things that are very sweet, you're going to increase the caphagenic qualities within your body. So you want to have things that are a little bit more stimulating, things that are warmer, things that are going to heat your body. Yep. And that's also going to change your practice of yoga. So you want your yoga to be a lot more heating, a lot more stimulating. So you still do Shavasana, you still get to Shavasana, but maybe it's not as long. And maybe your mind is already induced towards that state of meditation because you have that earth and groundedness. Whereas that Vata type person, I often teach in a gym as well once a week, and those people that lift the weights and run on the treadmill, they're the ones that leave for Shavasana. I can almost guarantee that they're the ones that would lean towards that raw food kind of salady type diet. They're the ones that might have those digestive issues. They're the ones that really need that Shavasana practice. Yep. So you start to analyse what's going on with the body. I'm getting the round up. Oh, and okay, that's where I go. So from here, we run Australia's only Diploma of Ayurvedic Yoga Teaching. We have a stall over in 68. We also run a health and wellness retreat up in Bendigo. We believe so strongly in the power of Ayurveda and yoga together. We believe that Ayurveda and yoga shouldn't be separated, that they work hand in hand. So when the body is healthy, it helps to work towards that spiritual attainment of yoga. Vice versa. We look at the body, mind and spirit connection. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening with this little airy microphone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your summit. Thank you.